What's going on, my broskiis? My name is Toadskii, back again here to bring you guys yet another One Piece Treasure Cruise video, and today we're going to be covering the tier list video for the month of October. So we're going to be jumping into this one. There's lots of discussions we need to have in terms of the new units that have been added to this tier list as well that we need to go through. You know, of course, we've got the Kaido batch that came out at the end of last month, the super evolution of Whitebeard Marco, and then of course the newly released film characters Uta, Kizaru, and Isho, as well as the brand new 6+ for Tesoro. So it's going to be an interesting one. It's going to be a very, very interesting one. But before we actually jump into it, we need to discuss my criteria that I typically use in order to break down these characters. So first of which is the power of the unit. How much damage can they output against an opponent? How fast are they at clearing that content? And how reliable are they at clearing that content? And is there content that they cannot beat because of their design, as well as how usable and versatile the character is. So can they be put into lots of different teams, or even on teams where they're not even fully boosted because of how powerful and useful that character actually is. All of those things make characters better than one another, or you can use to determine which characters are better than one another. We've got a lot of things to talk about here. Let's just start off with the actual tier list and what we have here. So for tier 5, I mean, the lower tier stuff is hard to really gauge because the pool of characters is just so significant. I will say, I think Shiki probably is bumped up a little bit because of the level limit breaks of the new rare recruits, or the old rare recruits, should I say, for his batch, Dr. Indigo and Scarlet. Actually make him a lot better, that's for sure. I think Germa should be bumped up a little bit too, because he has actually seen a little bit of play due to the recent release of the PKA. I do have the normal Tesoro still here. I mean, we'll take him out because he will be replaced with his super evolution form. And then we have, I mean, everything else in here is like pretty much okay. Like nothing really in here jumps out at me like, oh my god, these units were amazing this month. These units were pretty okay. Moving up into tier 4. I mean, we've got Whitebeard and Shanks, Crocodile Moria. Yeah, I mean, Toki probably be bumped up a little bit due to her usability in the latest Super Boss Kizuna. I think that was really nice to have her to allow certain characters to not get inflicted with that special bind on that Super Boss Kizuna was actually really clutch. So you cannot discredit how useful Toki still is, but it's just unfortunate because she just doesn't really see a hell of a lot of play. And the fact that she herself also includes Momo and Hiyori in the unit means you get access to really good supports, because Momo and Hiyori have very good supports these days. So I do think that you have to, you know, put the respect on Toki's name. She's still pretty solid. Moving up into tier 3, a very small tier, to be honest. This is a hard one to gauge, because some of the characters here, depending on the situation, can actually be like hella top tier. Like Carrot, for example. Carrot probably should still be in the top tier, to be honest, alongside Dog and Cat. She's just really good still. And then you've got like Bon Clay. I think Bon Clay is still very good. Core and Loi, I still think they're a fantastic unit. Bonnie and Lucy, I think, are all okay. Tier 2 here, we've got a lot of good characters here. Like, these are the characters that, you know, these characters actually see quite a lot of play. Like, these are good utility units, but they just don't, like, do a hell of a lot of damage. But, man, they are useful to have. You got Croc and Dofi as well. Big fan of those guys. Sparrow, Shanks and Buggy. I wish they were a little better than what they were. Jack probably should be a little bit higher than where he's currently ranked. He's still very good. Odin. You got Carrot and Nami. They should probably be a little higher as well, I would say. And then you've got Kid Luffy. You got K-Dad. And Ten and Big Mom and Hawkins. Hawkins is probably at the bottom of this tier. To be honest, Hawkins is probably like down here. He's really not that great, to be honest. The rest of this character, I'm pretty happy with that. Moving on to tier 1. I mean, this Luffy, I'm not a big fan of this Luffy, but like he is still really good. He is still like pretty solid, and you know the Straw Hats have some of the best units in the game, and he wants to utilize Straw Hats, so it's not the worst thing ever. I mean Drake is pretty good. He did see a bit of play with the Super Boss Kizuna. I think that's okay to leave him there. You got Ace and Sabo, who's still very good. I think that Ace and Sabo are definitely better than Luffy and Ace, to be honest. Beckman Lucky Roo saw a little bit of resurgence with the introduction of the new legend Uta. Probably want to bump them up a little bit more. Actually, you know what, now that I'm thinking about it, I kind of want to maybe bump them up a bit higher, man. Beckman Lucky Roo is so freaking good. Ace is definitely underrated. I feel Ace is pretty underrated. I think a lot of people really don't put a lot of credit into what this character is capable of doing. It's kind of hard though, because he's an ace character. There's a fair few good ace units in the game, and depending on the situation, you may not be able to put him on the team, but he's still very good. You've got the Robin Koala, probably bumped them down a little bit. They didn't really see a hell of a lot of play this month. You got the Whitebeard versus Blackbeard, very good in this latest PKA to resist the blowaway mechanics that will be occurring. If you're not able to find the friend captain of Fujitora and Kizaru, then you pretty much have to resort to this character as one of your captains, which is kind of annoying, to be honest. But it is what it is, Shanks is still very good. Roger is still really good. Carrot Wanda, Sabo, again, another really underrated unit. He just does a lot of good things. Like, if you actually look and read every single component that this character does, like, it's surprising how much stuff this Sabo does. Color affinity, it gets around Rainbow Shield, multiple launching of his specials, chain boundary stuff. Like, he's just a really good unit. He's super good. Moving on into tier 0. I don't think Super Tandem Kid should be up here anymore, to be honest. I think I want to bump him down, like, maybe to about here. I don't think he deserves to be tier 0. He's got some good stuff, but I don't think he's in this caliber anymore, to be honest. And then you've got like Momo, who I still think is very good. Zoro is still very good, but very difficult to use, but is a very good unit. Law and Kid, not a big fan of the way that they're built, but they have some cool stuff going on. Under my face cam there, you've got the Super Tandem Law, who is still very good. Good synergies with Luffy's, and he's a quick free spirit cerebral, just good synergies across the board with his type and class combos. Queen is still hella solid too. Do I think he deserves to be up here though, like that level? I kind of want to bump him down a little bit. I'd rather have Zoro over Queen. I don't know. These guys are pretty close. I'd say that this is a really close tie here. Momo is definitely still really good. Good utility, wave clearing, attack boost, and good EXP boosting captain, wave clearing. He's nice. Roger Whitebeard, still okay. Definitely seen less and less value as time has gone on, but still really good in Rumble. This is not a Rumble tier list, but good in Rumble. And they still have that niche usage of that really powerful switch ability. And then the ability to buff attack and orb boost and stuff like that. And still got a pretty solid captain too. Ace Yamato, still very good. Shanks hasn't really seen a lot of play recently, but on paper he's still very solid. Super Tandem Luffy, and you got Luffy Crew, and then you got this component here. Now, I mentioned in the pinned comments of my last video, after looking back at it, I don't want to put Cat and Dog up this high. I just think that's definitely a mistake. Probably want to put them down a little bit more. I still really regard this character as one of the greatest in the game at the moment. He's still very, very good. But when you look at what else we have here, yeah, look, it's not going to happen. And I just realized that this icon was incorrect, so I went ahead and updated it so we actually added the brand new Super Evolution of Gear 5 Luffy as well, because that is a very key component for this character that we need to discuss as well. This character is definitely a top 5 best unit in the game. With his Super Evolution and the fact that you have, the 6-star and the 6-star plus, I know people will probably say, no, you should split them up because they are technically two completely different units, and I do agree that they are they're completely different units, but it's the fact that you can hybrid them up and you can use them together, and the fact that eventually the skulls are going to be more accessible and you will be able to switch and choose when you can have whatever unit. The fact is, the 6-star unit is better in more content, usually, because his captain ability provides more for your crew. However, when you're just talking about doing as much raw damage as you possibly can, the 6-star plus version of Luffy is probably up there being the best unit in the game in terms of the amount of damage that he can output by himself. It is incredible what this character is actually able to do. And I do think that it is going to bump down Luffy and Yamato, and I do think that Gear 5 Luffy is like right here. Some people might bump down Uta, but I'm still a huge fan of what this character is capable of doing, and the fact is, she's very similar to this Luffy in the fact that she has all these different forms, can do multiple different things, can provide different roles for your crew. She's so good. Sanji, you can't disregard what he's doing either. I mean, base attack, chain effects, chain boundary, chain addition, can have the support of Brook for chain multiplicative as well. Captain swapping, which is pretty useful as well. Good utility, removing enemy defensive effects, slot change, and then obviously rush for your strength decks and quick as well. Sanji is just a beast. And with all that being said, I actually feel comfortable with the positionings of all of these characters right now. I think the top 5 is still pretty settled. Luffy could probably be bumped up a bit higher depending on how you feel. I still think Kaido Yamato are still up there, because Kaido with his Beast Pirates crew is just god tier. And then you've got Yamato and her Super Tandem is still incredibly powerful to have as well. And Luffy Yamato, you can't disregard what they do, you know. The increased damage taken through immunity is very good, but they're very annoying to use, you know. Having to get their super switch to get the most out of them. I'm not a big fan of that design for dual units. I mean, I've never been a big fan of dual units to begin with, and then they add that layer on top of it where they want you to access this super switch, which means you have to stall even more. Of course, in content where your stuff is fully charged for you, it's not that big of a deal. But in more generic content, it's just not a character I would ever want to use, unless if I really had to for a certain piece of content, you know? But either way, that's what we currently have. Let's go ahead and talk about some of the new additions to the tier list. First character is going to be the brand new Magma Kaido, Super Sugo Fest exclusive. This character is an absolute monster, but he definitely has some problems. The main issue that I have found with him at the moment is that there isn't a good character that can synergize with him to provide you with a very powerful super tandem mechanic. Yes, they did introduce the lead performer's free-to-play character that is a very solid option in most normal content. However, when we move forward into Super Boss Kizuna, a free-to-play super tandem with a 1.5 attack bonus, it's good, but it's not going to get you to those really high margins that you need to be reaching. So until we get a character that is working well with this Kaido that can generate a super tandem without having to need multiple taps, because of the way that Kaido is built as well, he wants to get his Rush Sugo special on tap 2 or on tap 3. And if you're in terms of activating a super tandem along that chain as well, it makes getting his Rush whilst also getting a super tandem relatively tricky. And there's no good characters that can synergize with him that can do that quite yet. So that's the big issue that we have. But if you take that out, like let's say you don't care about a super tandem at all and you're just talking about normal content, Kaido's like an absolute monster and just tears through most content pretty comfortably. I do think that he is nearing the top of tier 0 for sure. Like, you could even do this. Some people probably put Kaido in top 5. I mean, you probably could, but he's just lacking just a little bit. He's lacking just a little bit, but it's not much. He's not lacking much. His kit is really well designed. He does a lot of damage. 3 times conditional boost is nothing to scoff at. Inflicting increased damage taken for free is wicked. Great captain ability, of course. The special ability providing the orb boost as well. His orb boost is like kind of okay, like that's kind of whatever. But when you can stack that with a 3 times conditional boost, that offsets the fact that his orb boost that he gives you isn't like as high as other Super Sugo Fest exclusives. But then he has the highest conditional boost in the game by a very wide margin, which, as I said, that offsets all of those things. So Kaido, an absolute monster. Next is Kanjuro. I'm not a big fan of this unit. I actually have never pulled Kanjuro yet, but he does have some usages. You know, being able to buff attack and orb boost to 3x means you could just run like literally like just random supports to give you attack and orb boost, launch his special, and then boom, you've got your 3 times attack and orb boost. Like, that's pretty cool. You can do stuff like that. And he does allow you to generate burn, and he does allow you to generate dex slots. Depending on your team build, you can abuse those dex slots for other mechanics, such as Kaido, the new Magma Kaido, which we talked about, being able to change the dex slots into Wano. So being able to generate Wano slots with him is also kind of cool, but he's in a weird spot where he just doesn't have much of a role to play in most teams. Like, he's a very niche scenario legend, and they really catered the last Kizuna clash to be built to be used with this Kanjuro character, because outside of it, I just don't see this character seeing a hell of a lot of play. I'll leave him in tier 3 for now, but to be honest, like, characters in here I would rather use way over this Kanjuro, so I'd probably put him at the bottom of tier 4 for now. It might be kind of harsh for a debut legend, but it is what it is. He just doesn't do a whole lot. Speaking of characters that don't do a whole lot, we've got Marco and Whitebeard with their new super evolution. And I mean, look, this Whitebeard and Marco weren't even on the tier list to begin with. They do have a super evo that gives them better multipliers. They have better utility now. They have damage reduction. Their captain ability obviously is slightly better. So yeah, it's definitely a usable character that you can use. But I mean, let's be real here. Who's going to go out of their way to really use this? His super switch requiring 6 swaps for what he does, a bit harsh in my opinion. I think that for what his super switch does, it should have been 4 switches, 5 at the absolute most, but like 4 seems reasonable for what it does. So I think that's a bit of a poor design choice in my opinion. So I'm not a big fan of that either, and I really think it's a big missed opportunity that they didn't give this character percent damage reduction based attack boost. It just fits perfectly with a unit such as this, Bit shocked that they didn't apply it, as they gave it to Bato and Cavendish for some reason, but they wouldn't give it to Whitebeard Marco, who's a very defensively focused unit that would love some more offensive prowess. And that's exactly what Bato Cavendish is, a defensive unit that had some offensive prowess, and they never gave it to this character. So a little bit annoyed by that, but look, it is what it is. He still deserves to be on the tier list, at least at tier 5. I don't really see him going much higher than that. I'd probably leave him probably around, definitely better than Kawamatsu, I feel. Probably around this tier here. He's just okay. He'll see some uses for sure. He's boosted in the latest content because he's the latest super evolution, but once he is pushed to the wayside and isn't boosted in content anymore, I don't see this character really being used. Now we get to the film celebration, so I suppose we'll just start from the back and with Tesoro. So Tesoro, he was originally in tier 5, and to be honest, he kind of just stays in tier 5. As cool as I think Tesoro is as a character and what his design is like in Treasure Cruise, he's very annoying to use. His special ability did get a slight change, and he got access to super type now, which is kind of cool, but it doesn't really change his usefulness in content, unfortunately. Just bigger numbers, slight buffs across the board. He got a super type, which is like okay, but even in Rumble, he didn't even get much of a buff. So while we're all hoping for him to get a super evolution at some point and for him to become like an absolute godsend to the game, he just didn't get that. He just got slight buffs across the board. So it pains me to put him there, but he's just going to stay in tier 5 and be slightly bumped to the top of tier 5. He doesn't really need to go much higher than that. Yes, you can use him in really cool scenarios, and I'm sure if you build the right team, it's definitely like a tier 2, tier 1 kind of level character, but generally speaking, he's just not going to see play. So now we can talk about the two brand new debut legends with Borsalino and Isho as the first one, and we'll finish off with Uta. This unit is really difficult to talk about because he introduces a new mechanic of the buffing of critical strikes for potential abilities. Now, from what I have heard across the board in the community, that the character and what they do, yes, it is a pretty decent buff, but it is still team dependent, right? So if we're talking Gear 5, for example, Gear 5 has the critical hit potential ability, and if you can build, one of every color so that Luffy is super effective, and you have his rush, and then you have this crit buff, and you have conditional boost, attack boost, all boost, affinity, all these different buffs activated, like in that case, like that Fuji Kizaru is going to be a beast. Like that's actually wicked, but the fact that you have to really focus in on using critical strike characters is pretty tough. And the amount of damage that it really provides, well, yes, it's good. You could just use different like conditional boost or boost, whatever. Like there's just other ways to get damage. This is a new stackable buff that we can utilize now for sure. But at the moment, as of his release, it's just not good enough yet. Eventually, I'm sure this will be good, or they'll eventually release a Super Sugo Fest exclusive that has some crazy new way to buff criticals, or like for a turn, everyone gets a critical strike. Like that would be kind of wild if they did something along those lines. And like, yeah, he's got a pretty interesting captain ability of adding chain multiplier, end of turn damage, which is always useful in a captain ability for sure. Special ability also does end of turn damage, which is kind of fascinating. The switch effect of this unit is kind of odd. It's very similar to Usopp and Yasop, and he has a final tap. The final tap is actually pretty good, I will admit. It's a good final tap, and the fact that this character has critical hit and he's got the final tap means that special to buff crits is going to be strong. So if you partner this guy up with other attack orb affinity conditionals, he himself will do lots of damage. But at the moment, I just don't see where he kind of fits in a lot of teams. So it's hard to really talk about him. I think for now, I'll put him at the top of tier 3. I feel pretty comfortable with that, and he'll either go up from there or he'll just stay where he is. I don't think he's any worse than a tier 3 because he just doesn't do a whole lot. That's the problem. He just doesn't do a lot, and that's probably the biggest issue with him. But I'm excited to eventually get him because not only he seems kind of interesting with the new critical mechanics, but he's actually pretty decent in Rumble, so I want to test him out there as well. I just don't think he is in the level of these characters here, which is kind of unfortunate to say. And he's shooter slasher, and slashers are okay. Shooters are very good in normal content, I will admit. Shooters are very good in normal content. Good utility captains. I mean, you got Izo, and you got the Utas, and Ben Beckman, Lucky Roo, and the new Uta, of course. But yeah, I don't know. They're a very weird and odd character to talk about. So the final brand new character is the new Uta. So on original reading of this character, I didn't rate this character that highly. It just seemed like kind of like a whatever kind of unit. It's like, yeah, okay, it's like a V2 Uta with the turn progress activated effect, where you get a buff every single turn, and that's all well and good. However, after using this character, yeah, this character is really good. I was genuinely surprised at how good she is at clearing content. And while her own kit is really well designed, the thing about her that makes her so good is her type and class combo of being Psi, Shooter, Free Spirit, and the fact that she boosts all of those classes and types with every component, either the captain, with her special, with her super tandem. All components buff all of those types and classes, which is big, because some characters, like for example, Whitebeard versus Blackbeard, while like Whitebeard, for example, he's like Psi powerhouse striker, and then like Blackbeard is like Dex powerhouse driven. The secondary class, driven for Blackbeard, striker for Whitebeard, like this unit doesn't boost those units, which is really dumb. I'm not a big fan of that. Like the fact that this character potentially could be a striker booster would actually help this character out significantly, and it's really annoying that he doesn't get access to that. Whereas Uta, yeah, she boosts Psi, Free Spirit, and Shooters just across the board, which is good. I like that. And the fact that some of the best units in the game are either Psi units or Free Spirit units means this Uta is likely going to see a hell of a lot of play moving forward. And as I said, after using her, I'm genuinely impressed with this character. And the fact that a generically released character gets access to a super type that gives you a guaranteed delay through all status effects, and then you have this character that can provide you with an attack boost, which can potentially go up to a 3x attack boost and a 2.25 conditional boost, which she can self-proc, and when you use the super type to get the guaranteed delay, you can make her become the sub again to put your character with the much higher captain multiplier back into that captain position, such as Gear 5 Luffy, such as Sanji potentially, such as Nami. Like, just Uta's really good. Trust me, Uta's exceptional. And the fact that you can stack it with double Uta too. You can run quick Uta because she's a shooter captain. You can run it with this Uta, shooter captain. You can run Ben Beckman Lucky Roo with the friend captain of this Uta with your own Uta sub. So you could have Uta get your conditional boost and stuff, switch her back down to the sub, get Ben Beckman Lucky Roo's captain effect still activated to remove defensive effects with the taps. Yeah, dude, it's so good. It's so good. So I do think that Uta currently is a tier 0 legend. I can't put her really above some of these Super Sugos because of the damage potential that they can do. But what Uta is capable of doing as a normal, generically released Sugo Fest exclusive is impressive. It really is. And I think with all of that, that is going to wrap up the tier list for the month of October. I'm definitely going to have to do some cleaning up in the next month's tier list, get rid of some icons and stuff to make it a bit more cleaner. But yeah, next month is going to be the month of October, where we'll get the 9.5 anniversary stuff. So the 9.5 anniversary unit or units will not be revealed by the time the next tier list comes up. So we will have to, next month's tier list isn't going to be as exciting, I don't think. But moving into December, where we get 9.5 for the tier list, is going to be big. And then of course the month after that, when we have January and we have the New Year celebration, yeah, that tier list is going to be pretty big too. But that is going to wrap it up from me. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down below in the comment section. What are your top 5 best units in the game right now? Would love to hear your opinions on it. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you guys did, make sure to go ahead and leave a like. And if you want to stay up to date with all the content I post, including more One Piece Treasure Cruise content, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. I'm that, guys. I'll see you guys within the next video.